All right, we're back with another episode of Roster Mania, and I have joined with the foremost Chinese expert, Mr. TMV. Ni hao,
So many.
TMV. Ni hao.
No, we won't be getting into that. I once I lost a bet about Chinese teams' performances. I think I said that Sen would. It was something about Sen and Chinese teams, and they had a very
Of
intimate
course it
relationship
was.
with Chinese teams. And yeah, I'm meant to do a segment of one of my podcasts in full Chinese, so I'll wait for that uh to do any of that. But yeah, so we're diving into China. And look, I mean, China, as we all know, is thoroughly predictable and never
Oh, true.
throws up any surprises whatsoever. So surely all of the takes in this will age very well.
Yeah, I think I can't remember. I feel like I did make a take last year that finally we were going to see some evolution from China. They were going to take that next step
Mm,
and not be the fourth region, but
yeah,
that did not happen.
champs went well.
Yeah, that did not happen.
This year, you're gonna double down. I mean, this is the great thing about that. You could just say that at the start of every single year. Eventually, you will be right, and because that happens at the start of the year, people do not remember.
Yeah, and people don't remember any takes about China in general, so like I can
No,
be the Chinese prophet for sure.
no.
Um, I'm not going to double down. I think I kind of lost faith last year. I was fairly
Okay.
disappointed by the Chinese showings at the international events. And honestly, I scrimmed them a lot. I thought they were pretty good, but there was also a lot of nonsense that was happening. So
Yeah.
I'm sure that'll continue.
The
Um,
Chinese way.
True, exactly. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go from sort of like the lowest placing teams at the end of last year in the region to the top placing teams, and that means that we get to start at a place very close to your own heart with your Wolves. Can we leak that you've signed to them yet, or no?
Uh, no, because I don't think that's gonna happen, unfortunately.
Oh, unlucky.
Sadly.
So
Um,
the Wolves roster has had quite a bit of turnover.
mhm.
They have released Juicy, Yuka, and Lysor. Spring and Sufat are being retained. Obviously, Spring was really their kind of superstar last year. Sufat was their aura superstar last year. And they have added three new players: Yosemite from Billy Billy,
Mhm.
Satoshi from Rare Atom, I believe, right? And then
Yep.
Joa is a player who's been in the Americas tier 2 region.
Yep.
Um, so kind of an interesting mix. You know, I have been talking with their analyst Ominous off and on for years at this point, so I've always been kind of interested in how he scouts players. I feel like his track record is reasonably good, although we won't really talk about Bleed. Maybe that was a little bit more to do with the owner
I think everyone
embezzling
on Bleed gets
funds.
the pass. Everyone
Yeah.
gets the pass on Bleed.
So we'll just say he's been pretty good at picking players. So I'm curious to see what this roster looks like. What are your takes on Wolves going 2026?
Well, I think the first thing when we talk about any team in terms of their roster is like should they have made changes,
Yeah,
right? And the fact that we're starting with Wolves because they were so well, I think with Wolves there is a bit of an asterisk because of course stage two China, I think it was the first 2 weeks happened like right after Masters Toronto. They
yeah,
they had a very strange schedule in stage two where it was like they did 2 weeks of play, then I think there was an EWC break, and then they did the rest. And obviously Wolves, because they went deep in Toronto, had literally like barely any time to prep. I'm pretty sure, and there
yeah,
was map change, and there was a double map change as well. Now, for some reason, Wolves thought, let's play the map changes. Let's play a new. Corrode was new at the time, of course, and we're like, oh yeah, we'll go into Corrode despite having no time to play it. So the first couple weeks they struggled, I think, because of that, right? Because they got their
yeah.
map vetoes all wrong and they had less time to prep. But I think from then on, because they didn't go DWC when other teams did, from then on, I think the struggle can more be prescribed to they didn't have a great meta read, and also the players weren't playing that well, right?
Hmm.
So I think making changes made sense. I think Juicy, like even when Wolves were at their best in Toronto, Juicy kind of did step up for Toronto. But for me, like when you think of their Toronto story, Spring was very clearly like the guy.
Mhm.
Like the two players that they've kept for me are the two people who I think when you think of that Toronto run, you think of Sufat, you think of Spring, right?
Yep.
When they were at their best. So I think keeping those two makes absolute sense. I personally still would have been okay with keeping. I mean, really any of the three. I think two changes were probably necessary. They went with three instead. I think that's fine.
Mhm.
But I wouldn't have been mad had they decided to keep three and bring in two new players instead. So yeah, starting off with that, I think that okay, that's a fine choice to make if you think you need to make three changes. In terms of the players that they brought in, Jawa, I mean, coming from tier 2 NA to then playing in tier 1 China is obviously a bit of a strange move, but we'll see, I guess.
Not the first person to do that, actually.
No.
Lucas on Titan Esports Club also made that move last year.
Yeah,
So,
so that's one of those like how did you end up in this spot? How did
yeah.
that end up going about? It's a bit of a weird one. Yosemite, I think, is just a good pickup. I don't really have a problem with that. Satoshi for me is the one, and again, we're going off season results, but like it is a I'm concerned. I would say that Satoshi is my concern when you look at
Mm.
this new roster because Satoshi was brought in to be a duelist, did so bad on duelist in those first couple games that they have now moved him, it seems, to smokes and put Spring on duelist instead. That makes me quite concerned because for
Yeah.
me, there are kind of two directions you can go in this meta, and that one is fast and one is slow. One is double duelist and one is Viper double controller. Right? For me, when I was looking at Wolves and when they did well, they picked slow. Right?
Hmm.
Toronto, they were a slow team playing Viper a lot, and it was working for them.
Hmm.
And I personally think that if that's how you play best, if that's how Sufa IGL best, if that is your, kind of the direction you want to go in, just go in that direction, right? And that means that Spring is playing Viper though. That means that you need a duelist who can understand that and recognizes the right moments to be aggressive. So I'm a little bit worried that the way that they kind of made their team now maybe is going to make them go in for the fast play, which is what they somewhat tried in stage 2 when everyone else was playing double duelist, and it was horrible. So I'm a little worried.
Yeah. It is kind of interesting. This is one of those things where I kind of, I'm praising Ominous's scouting. I'm looking at Joa. Definitely not the best player on that SAT esports team because you've got the likes of Jerwin, Bao, who's now on EG.
Mm.
Um, I've been a pretty big fan of Welly on that team as well. So like they had a bunch of talent on that team. Obviously, none of them speak Chinese, so only
Yeah.
Joe was eligible. But just as far as like out of the tier 2 talents in NA that you could have picked, seems like kind of an interesting choice. Um, I was not aware that they had tried out Satoshi on Duelist and then swapped to Spring because I think you and I are on the same page that the way that Spring played Smokes was like the perfect level of aggression of getting value, both on the Viper and just kind of on the. He's kind of like when they moved Smoggy off a duelist to Smokes, it worked so well because he was a duelist, but also was then getting value as a smoker. Um. So yeah, I mean, I guess if you had to kind of rate this team, how did they do? If you were I guess auditing their GM, would you re-up his contract?
Um. So yeah, I don't mind the decisions of the removals. I'm a little bit wary of the arrivals, so
Hmm.
I would give this maybe like a B minus. Wait and see.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, but then again, if you're doing so bad in stage 2, you need maybe better than a B minus.
Yeah, definitely an interesting team because they were nowhere to be seen, then amazing, and then gone. And
Yep.
just a true flash in the pan.
Yep.
And so we really don't know what this team actually is and what their ceiling can be.
But it's
Um,
like, but even as a flash in the pan, right? It's not like they played very well. It wasn't
yeah,
like they snuck through games. Like they were a very good team during Toronto. It's
yeah,
just can that come together? And I worry. I do worry.
yeah. I mean, I remember scrimming them a bunch last year. I feel like we beat them pretty consistently, and so I was kind of surprised that they got third place.
Mm,
But
yeah.
it is what it is. All right, let's move on. We'll wait to maybe we'll revisit this show later on, and we can you can trauma dump about your Wolves fandom at that point. Oh, one thing before we move on to the next team. Can you leak any new chants for the new players?
Not just yet. No.
Okay.
It takes a bit of a process to go through because I'm often using chants that become popular in football that year to then
Okay.
yeah, add into it.
Still testing the material then, I see.
Yeah. I've got some ideas to be fair, but yeah. Also,
Okay.
what if they're just terrible? Like, and then I'm never gonna use the chant, am I? That's the thing. Like, we're doing the chants when they pop off. What if they're shit?
Y'all just have to be one of those like super anti fans at that point. Drop them. Drop. All right, let's move on to Titan Esports. According to the VCT Stats website, they just have kind of like renewed all of their contracts. Were all these players on the team at the very end of last year? I guess they were, because they had moved RB over to Nongshim and then kind of solidified their playing five, I believe. Although they did have a rotating cast of characters for a while there. But the current roster reads Howdong, Abo, Coco, Lucas, and T-Virus Luke, with After as the head coach. He's been there for a while, I feel like. And then Three Water is the assistant coach. Thoughts on Titan Esports? Did they need to make some changes? No roster shakeup after placing kind of poorly. A little bit strange.
Yes, this but that's more than strange. As I said with Wolves, like, making a couple changes when you're bad makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this Tech were probably, if you're going across the whole year, they were probably the worst team in China throughout the whole year. Right? They were they didn't have a Wolves little miracle run either.
Yeah.
They were just kind of mid to bad throughout.
Yeah.
So how the hell are you not making any changes? I mean, just looking at like the stats of like stage 2 China, T-Virus, look, your duelist player, is putting up a 0.81 rating, is dying, 0.2 first deaths every round, but getting a lot more first deaths than first kills. Like, I don't know. I don't know, putting up an ACS below 200 on only playing duelist, like, I don't know. That just seems a bit of a strange one for me. I really don't understand. I guess they just gave up. I don't know.
Damn, they're just gonna slowly fade into history, I guess.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, we again on GE last year, we scrimmed them a decent amount. We did kind of stop scrimming them because we were beating them a lot, so they weren't the best practice. Honestly, I feel like their most consistent player is probably Lucas, the import from North America. Abo had some decent moments, and Luke was good for like a crazy round here or there, but definitely very inconsistent and certainly not really kind of like hitting the peaks that you need to hit as a duelist, I feel like, consistently enough. All right. I mean, I guess if we have to grade this, can we go above F? Like, are you willing to...
Look, if you're the worst, how are you expecting to get that much better? You're not changing anything. Oh, the coaches are still the same, right?
But continuity, TMV, having more experience together after a chaotic year, perhaps they have
Not when you're
locked
just
in.
bad. Like, at least, like, if you'd shown some promise, sure, but when you're like the worst team, imagine Fury is stuck with their roster. You wouldn't be like, oh, good job, guys. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it is kind of weird. It is kind of weird, especially.
They get an F.
Yeah, we'll give them that. I mean, there's a lot of players that moved around. I guess actually, maybe China had some of the least amount of movement, I guess, from the teams, which is very strange considering how the year was. I know that these there's sort of like a weird opaque filter that we can't see behind into like the Chinese tier 2 scene, right? Because there is no like documentation of that on VLR, so we don't really know like who is out there as much.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious whether this is like maybe the tier 2 scene is pretty poor. I don't know. It is
The weird thing about that is, though, you would expect, again, like the numbers from China in terms of like the amount of people playing and like watching, you would expect there to, I mean, yeah, maybe not this year, but pretty soon you would expect there to be an influx of, extreme, like there kind of has been with Korea in the recent years as well.
Yeah.
Kind of an influx of talent. I would kind of expect the same thing should be coming for China. So maybe it's not there yet, but yeah, it should be on the way.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to another team that did make a ton of changes, both during the year last year and also going forward into 2026, which is Nova Esports. They maintained 3 players from their roster: Azir, Guangji, and Obi-Wan. Formerly, I used to call him Obone, which I think is funnier,
Obone.
but but
Obi-Wan is
Obi-Wan.
also amazing.
It's a pretty good name. And it looks like they've confirmed Hebei and a Taiwanese player named Green, who I've never heard of before. Hebei, obviously, he was on Trace before, right?
He was. Yep.
Okay. And then they've also added an entirely new coaching staff, Korean coaching staff, it looks like, who I also am not familiar with. So this is kind of a very interesting, very new look team. They released, or maybe transferred, CB, released Swirl, and their former head coach 24K. This is a team, again, that I scrimmed a lot on Global last year. They had Swirl in and out of the roster at times. I think they were trying to like go full Chinese speaking, but he was Australian, and so they were communicating English last year, as far as I understand. What do you think about this new roster?
Nova to me are an interesting one because I think I actually, from what I remember from stage 2 last year, they did actually show some decent games, and they like Tech to me were like truly awful. Nova, I think, we're a step above that. So I don't like hate the fact that they're keeping players. Obviously, CB, there's a reason that he's going to EDG because he's good. So I'm gonna assume that they couldn't really do much about that one. Like I assume in China, it very much goes like if EDG
when
come
EDG,
calling,
or T1 or any of these teams come knocking,
it's like they're gone. So I'm gonna not really blame them too much for that one. And making some changes, I think, is fine. Hebei, whenever like Trace have into internationals or whatever, he's like fine. He's not like the engine that ran Trace or whatever, but he's probably like fine tier 1 player. And as you say, I know nothing about Green, so I'm not even gonna comment. But I think this is okay, but it is a little like if we're talking about like Nova, I can give them a bit of bail for losing CB, but at the end of the day, like they probably would have been maybe better off with him. But it is what it is. It's okay, but I'm not expecting the world.
Yeah, one thing I will say is last year they always had like this weird dynamic where, at least certainly when we would play them in scrims, like Swirl was their duelist, but oftentimes it was like Guangji who was carrying them, and he would often be the guy that was entering, even though he was playing like a sentinel sometimes. And then they also did switch him over to duelist at times, and so there was kind of like there must have been some sort of like, maybe we should just let this guy do it full time. I think he probably is their best player. Azir is quite good also. So they definitely have talent, but certainly losing CB, I'm a little bit worried about their potential firepower. And then, I just have genuinely no idea who these coaches are. So will they be good? Will they have good influence? There's been a fairly good track record of Korean coaches having good impact on the Chinese teams. But, will these moves take them from being that sort of like just missing off on playoffs into playoffs? Kind of hard to say. I would probably shade towards a no personally.
Yeah, but I mean, again, like if you just like looking at just looking at their stats and stuff of just going through some of their players, like Azir was very highly rated. Like they basically got rid of the players who weren't very highly rated and kept the players who are,
except for
apart
CB.
from like CB, who is like fine. Yeah, so like that, I guess it's like, well, what else do you want us to do?
Yeah, I think we can give them like a solid B probably for their off season.
Yeah, it's like a B.
Okay,
it's fine.
Cool. Let's see. Next up, we have JDG, who had a very, very short period of time where they looked like maybe they were going to make a run last year, but then they just ended up finishing.
Also had a very short amount of time when it sounded like they were going to get Aspas, which maybe would have changed our view on this team a bit.
Yeah, true. I mean, JD Mall, JDG Esports, they do have a lot of money. They're owned by some mega celebrity over there, I think. Like, probably he's not working directly with the team, but is one of his
the coach.
Yeah. But they have made some changes. They've held on to Stu, seemingly held on to Jay Kuro, their smokes player. Caitlyn, I'm not entirely familiar with. He must have been late. I feel like this team had like 15 players at some point last year, also. Um, and then it looks like they've also added Yuka and Jay, who was on Rare Atom
Mm-hmm.
and one of the highest rated players in Chinese Ascension. And then probably the biggest move, honestly, is bringing in Bale, the BLG head coach. Um, Maybe sort of looking at, well, this team has essentially struggled with structure. Maybe Stu needs to be enabled a little bit more. So bring in somebody who can speak his language directly and also mentor him a little bit, because he's obviously been one of the top talents in China for a couple of years now, but we've never seen JDG take that step. So how do you feel about JDG going to 20?
I think this is pretty positive. I think this is probably the best of the ones we've looked at so far,
Mm-hmm.
where Jay was a, like, I would say, like, the kind of like buzzy prospect from, Rare Atom, who didn't quite manage to make it again.
Mm-hmm.
So that I think is a good pickup. I think that Ukor is a very solid player. Um, and also a very flexible player, which I think is quite helpful as well. So I think that's a pretty good pickup. Keeping Stu, I think, is pretty good, and I think Bale is as proven to be a good head coach in China.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's all good. I think everything they've done, good, good job, JDG. Apart from getting Aspas, I think this is good.
I'm
I like
curious
where you're
who's going to
going.
be IGLing. What, like, I feel like Yuka is maybe the most experienced player on this team,
Mm.
um, and I think as far as his performance goes, I really didn't like seeing him on Duelist, and thankfully on this team he
Oh yeah,
probably won't
yeah.
have to
He
play
definitely
Duelist.
won't be. No, yeah.
So maybe flexing and calling will be his new sort of career revival trajectory. Other than that, I get the only other person I could see maybe calling is Jay Kuro, although I don't really know too much about Caitlin, who came in fairly late um, into last year. But yeah, certainly lots of firepower and a head coach who has shown that he knows how to win in China is definitely a good step in the right direction for these guys. As far as off-season grades for the GM, how we feeling, TMV?
I think I'd give this like an A minus.
An A minus. Okay. JDG making playoffs confirmed. JDG making a run.
I think they should. If they don't make playoffs with this team, I think they'd be very disappointed. Not to make playoffs. I think they should be looking at top six,
Yeah, I think
not just
that's
like
fair.
top eight.
I think that is fair. All right, let's move on to the top 8 teams from last year. And coming in at number 8, kind of an interesting one considering how their stage 2 started, is FPX, Fun Plus Phoenix. They brought in Legia between stage 1 and stage 2, I believe, or maybe after
Mm.
kickoff, something like that. And then this off season, they have lost Autumn to Global Esports and dropped Yosemite or had him transferred to another team. Um, Keeping Life, obviously, keeping Aeyong, who has been one of the highest rated initiator players in China for the last 2 years, keeping Berlin, their IGL, and then adding Scary. So Scary reuniting with Legia after a fairly lengthy retirement, actually, and then Setrod, who I have never heard of before and have zero information
This team for me, they're such a bizarre team. I mean, they always kind of have been. Um, because obviously we've seen them play. I mean, we've seen them go like head to head legit with like that Team Heretics game that they played. When was that? Was that in Shanghai? Where it was the OT on Icebox, and they go in like literally toe to toe with like arguably the best team of that year.
on. Yeah,
Um, and they didn't quite manage to make it. But like that team looked really good, and Ayang has shown. Ayang is such an interesting player because again, he's shown. I remember at one point, like looking at his stats, I can't remember exactly when this was, but there was a certain point when he was like one of, if not the highest rated player like in the world, like
yeah,
like for a stage.
yeah.
But then I've looked at him in other stages. He's been like, oh, he's got a 0.98 rating or something. He's just
Yeah.
like he just looks like an average player. So
He
he's a
tends
very
to
up and down.
farm
You got
China. He tends to farm
yeah.
China. Yeah.
Then you've got like Life, who is an insane player, but it's just make like he to me, Life is the prototypical Chinese player of Valorant. You know, just like cracked out of his mind.
Yeah.
But then you watch him play, and he'll just do the most bizarre shit you've ever seen, and be like, "How the fuck did you ever think you were gonna get away with that? No, in no world were you ever going to get away with, you know, just running out through. Oh, let me just run through a choke point on my own for no reason. Like, who do you think you are, right? Then you've got Berlin, who I think has probably been a solid IGL. But again, the FPX fall down, because I think when we think about China, kind of and what we think of China, like you've got EDG clear number one, and FPX probably have been the second best team for most of it. So their
Yeah.
fall off last year was quite interesting. Because to me, when Legia came in, when I was watching them versus in stage two, which I was actually watching quite a lot of FPX during stage two, because their results mattered for Wolves, making it to playoffs and stuff. So I actually was tuning in and focusing in pretty heavy. What I would notice with FPX is Legia would, I almost felt like they were too reliant on whatever Legia's plan was working, and if the
Mm,
plan didn't work, for whatever reason, not necessarily his fault all the time, like then they didn't maybe know exactly what to do, or the players couldn't like figure out like another solution on their own, perhaps. Um, which I think then means bringing in someone like Scary, who's worked with Legia before, is a good idea, because then you've got someone else, who Scary was the IGL as well, wasn't he? When they
was
were
he?
together, was he?
No, that's crazy guy. Crazy guy.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay. But
Yeah.
either way, he's been
Yeah.
there with Legia before, so he perhaps understands a bit better what is going on. Can Scary speak the language?
True. Yeah. I mean,
That might be a problem. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, this team again is an interesting team. This to me is a team that could either very easily make it to like all three internationals, or they could just do what they did at the stage two last year and just kind of be middle of the pack eighth. I think their players are too good
yeah,
to
I agree
like
with
be
that.
bottom of the barrel, but it wouldn't shock me if they were like, yeah, that seventh best team in China. But they very easily could be the first or second as well if things all went right.
Yeah, it is very interesting. Just like because they came out into stage two and looked so good. I feel like last year.
Oh,
Um,
they destroyed Wolves in that first game. Like completely
well,
outplayed them.
I guess we didn't know how bad Wolves were going to be.
Yeah,
First of
true,
all,
true, but that
um,
was a sign. But they
yeah,
played well in that game as well, though.
yeah,
That wasn't
yeah.
like just Wolves. They were
They,
good that game.
they
And
did.
that annoyed me as well later on, when it was like they looked shit later on. And I was like, well, why did you play so well against Wolves if you're gonna do this?
True, true. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm still sort of like on the fence about a lot of their players, and even potentially just like like one of the things that made them so interesting as a team was Nathan D, like sort of enabling their craziness, right? Because
Yeah.
obviously we've seen him do crazy stuff at Dragon Ranger, so we know that he was the source of some of their crazy
Oh yeah.
stuff.
I mean, he had to be the source.
Yeah,
I fucking love him. He's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, and so Legia is definitely not that guy. He's much
No.
more by the book, like TAC FPS, et cetera, et cetera. And so, will that mesh with the players who have been raised in the crucible of chaos? I
Yeah.
don't know. Like, maybe we'll have to see some more roster moves. You know,
That
but
is a fair point, because a player
yeah,
like Life is you can't tame a player like that. I don't
right.
think. I think he is past the edge of tameable. Like he does, and like if you think about players like, let's take Kang Kang as an example as well, right? Like older Kang Kang, you would probably put into that category as well, of like he's just gonna do his thing, and you
Yeah,
kind of just have to roll with it. But like actually, when they won champs, he did kind of rein it in a bit. He did kind of like become a better player by starting to rein it in and becoming more experienced. Life, though,
yeah,
I just think is on another planet. He's
yeah.
just he's too far gone. It's over. Which I then think that, playing like, oh, we're playing triple smokes today, guys. Go crazy. Like, I feel like that maybe did suit them. Maybe
Yeah.
that honestly will be a problem, because as I said, like you got Legia. It felt like Legia was, really trying to lead the team in a certain direction, and
Mhm.
then if it didn't work, they didn't know what to do, which again might be a problem, that this team is too crazy for him as a coach.
Well, I guess we'll see what happens.
Mm.
Okay, let's move on to Trace, who is another team I think that kind of falls into the same category as FPX, which is like expectations were much higher than the results ended up being towards the end of the year. Trace had
Yeah,
always been sort of that solid team. If we had like EDG, then like an FPX or BLG, and then the next
it
one
was
would be
trade.
like
Yeah,
them or Trace. And Trace was always sort of like either number 3 or number 4. Last year they fell down to 7th, 8th, missed champs, and honestly, I'm not even totally sure why. Because like they've got good players.
mm.
They have seemingly removed Bianc, who was their most experienced and calling for the team. Now, according to this website, they also have potentially removed Feng Feng, which I'm very mad at if that's true, but they recently just played in a tournament with him, so I don't really know what's going on there.
Mm.
The one thing that we are sure of is that they've added Delby, who came over from All Gamers and was extremely, extremely talented over there. And also, it looks like they have added Viva. So, what is their playing five, and how do you think this team is going to do? They're keeping their Staff Destroyer and Yi Yi, which is a Yi
Fun
in
name
my
to
book.
say at the very at the very least. I think Viva and Del B, two players that like I would call like experienced Chinese players who both played in internationals as well. Viva I thought was a fairly decent player on XLG last year, so
Mhm.
I don't hate the pickups. Trace are an interesting team for me because especially if they are getting rid of Feng Feng, that is a weird one. But I always feel like they had this weird sort of back and forth
Oh,
ping
their
pong and
dynamic was
duelist thing.
hilariously
It would,
weird.
yeah, like, oh, now Kai, you go play Cypher, and Fong Fong will play Raze, or now
Yeah.
Kai, you go play Jet or whatever, and Fong Fong, you play Cypher. Like it was a very, though that's the kind of like 2021 shit that we would see, where you
Yeah.
had like, oh, I can only play Raze, and oh, I can only play Jet,
Yeah.
like those kind of duelist players, like that just doesn't exist anymore. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they finally taught Kai how to play the other duelists. I don't know. Maybe. I hope so for their case. But like Tracer are an odd team, like you say, because again they've got talent, they've got skill. They should have been better than that last year.
Yeah.
I'm looking at these changes though, and I'm actually feeling like, yeah, they'll still be. I feel like with this five that I'm looking at right now, Kai, Martin, Lower King, Viva, Delby, if that's their team, I feel like they'll have a pretty high floor, but maybe a not that high of a ceiling. Like kind of almost locking them into like sixth to fourth.
Yeah, I mean, again, they kind of are on that same sort of like their players are too good to be bad, in my opinion.
Mm,
I know Kai is a good duelist, and Loking and Martin have also been very solid. I know Delby is good, and Viva, like you said, was solid. Um, who's calling? Because Bianca was the IGL, right?
mm.
Or was it somebody else?
I
I
think
feel
it
like,
was beyond.
yeah, I think it was him. So somebody's gonna have to step up and take over the calling for this team. I don't know who that's gonna be. I would assume it'll be Martin or Luking, but I guess it could potentially be Viva.
Did Viva call when someone from did he call when someone couldn't make it to a tournament?
I
Maybe.
feel like I do remember him calling at some point last year. Obviously,
Yeah.
Crystal was their IGL during Ascension, but then when they came up into the league last year, I feel like there was at least some tournament or like some games where he called.
Yeah.
So maybe it will be him. I really don't know though.
Mm. But yeah,
Um,
I'm expecting him to be okay.
yeah. All right. What's the grade? Getting Delby? That's pretty good for me, but
Mm.
is it enough?
If we consider them losing Fong Fong and your IGL, ah man, I'm gonna give this one a straight up. I'm gonna give them the B minus as well.
Okay. Yeah, maybe not making quite enough moves to jump up into that XLG, BLG, EDG territory. Um,
Yeah, but
I don't
not
know.
terrible.
China could be really interesting next year, especially in like the middle of the pack. Who's
Yeah,
going to be good? You never know.
not tech.
Not Tech. I think we're on the same page with that one. All right, let's move on to a couple of maybe slightly more surprising teams last year. All Gamers made a little bit of a stand after being utterly
Yep.
horrendous and having 26 players on their roster for the last year and a half. They suddenly looked like they had figured something out in stage 2 and just kind of missed. I mean, I guess they didn't just miss going to champs, but they had a decent run. losing 2-1 to XLG in playoffs. Um,
I actually think you can do them and TYLOO together because to me they're very, very similar. These two teams in terms of, according to
I
this website at least, they're not making
yeah
many changes,
yeah
and they both were terrible. And then in stage 2, they kind of got it together and looked pretty good.
yeah. So obviously, AG, according to the website, the roster is Shrimp, Kira, which are two returning players, but then they have three new players from their roster last year.
Yeah.
They lost Delby, obviously. So they have added Jubibi, Leave You, and X Curly Hair, who's an Indonesian player. I know nothing about any of these three. Um, will the Rolodex of all gamers continue to improve? They also have 6 coaches, so I don't know, man.
What's interesting about this is, to me, is if you actually look at their VLR page of their players,
Mm-hmm.
those players that you just read aren't even there.
Yeah.
So I'm not even sure who these people are, if they're just making up names at this point, whether that's AG or this website, if they're trying to disguise
I mean, it
something in here. I
says
mean, famously, they had a player called Player, which
true.
might be the greatest name of all time. They also had a player, G, who did play some games, which means washing machine in Chinese, and was apparently their manager of some sort, who then decided to sub himself in, and I'm pretty sure they did win a game with him. Um,
They do
whilst playing with
truly
their
have
manager.
all the
So
gamers on this team.
they are
Now,
a very fun team. However, like, if I'm talking about this roster, I know nothing about the players who they're bringing in. However, I know that Shrimp is very good.
yeah, I mean,
Shrimp,
he
all
played
the
for
Shrimp
EDG, right?
Company, very
Briefly,
good. Played for who?
didn't he play for EDG before Gianni?
He
He
played
was
for
on some
FPX.
other team. FPX.
Played for
Okay,
FPX.
okay. Now I will say I just opened the global contract database, which obviously doesn't update like consistently, but currently on the official Riot contract database, which was last updated in April. That's not very helpful. They have Spitfires, Kira, and Shrimp signed to the team. So I guess who knows?
Who
Who knows
knows?
what this team will look like? Now, I do want to jump over to TYLOO. I'm not going to give them a grade because I don't know what's going on. And I don't think the website does. And I don't think anybody does. We do know
No
that
one
they
can
will
know.
have 5 gamers playing. We don't know who those 5 gamers will be, though.
Will they? Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll say,
No
we can do
gamers.
this 3v5.
Yeah,
Challenge ourselves. We did so
okay.
well at the end of last year.
That would be a pretty gamer thing to do. So,
Yeah. Or they play 6v5 and say, we've got all the gamers, so we're going to take our advantage.
just put the coaches in. All good. There is also a weird rumor that Fangear has been signed by them. Now, that is a very totally random, out of left field. Any thoughts if we have another Russian going to China? It's worked in the past.
Look, I'm just going to assume that that they probably won't play because there's so much competition for this old gamers roster. Who knows who'll play?
True. Okay. Well, let's talk about TYLOO because we know a little bit more about TYLOO. They really did have quite a big glow up last year in stage 2, and they have seemingly solidified around potentially the next big thing in China, which is Slowly. Slowly
Slowly is
is
a beast.
incredibly good. The supportive players around him, Sword9, solid, Scales, solid, Yo-Yo, and then they've also added Splash, who you probably don't know about, but I certainly know about Splash because he is a freak and he is incredibly skilled also. He's been in SEA, he's been like, you know, one of the hottest prospects in all of Southeast Asia. He was playing for God, what team was he on before RQ Academy? One of those smaller Indonesian orgs, Ignite, and then RQ Academy. A lot of people wanted this guy, and TYLOO, I guess, gave him the best contract. So I think he'll be of age now. He was definitely like 17 last year. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, definitely absurd firepower on this team. Will TYLOO be able to make top 4?
If you're telling me that this guy that they picked up, Splash, is the next coming of Jesus or something, I'm all in on this team then. I'm in on this team because I think that Slowly is very good. Really, really good. And Slowly is good enough to the point where I'm kind of shocked that, one of the other maybe bigger teams didn't flex their muscle and be like, come and play for us. But if they're
Mhm.
if they're signing people who, everyone's after, not just in China, but Pacific as well, that tells me that okay, they're somewhat serious. They're perhaps recognizing that this is a team that can actually do something. So I'm in. I'm in on this team. I'm in. Like if this Splash guy is as good as you say, yeah, I'm happy with the rest of the team. And Slowly is also just an absolute monster. Count me in. Count me in. I think this team will be top four then. Go on. I'll
Cool. Yeah,
say it.
I mean, the one interesting question will just be who plays Duelist because Splash is a Duelist player.
Both
Um,
of them.
I
Double
mean,
duelist every
yeah,
map. Triple
maybe.
duelist if we need to. We can beat Fnatic 13-0.
True. And I mean, honestly, I feel like double duelist may just be the way in China. Like everybody likes to run
Oh
around
yeah.
and fight. Just put your best players on duelists and let them go fight people. Yeah. I also, TYLOO is a very, very storied org in the FPS scene. So it's been kind of like sad that they have not been remotely competitive in Valorant yet. And this might be sort of like their first, hey, look at us. We're actually here to compete finally. Um,
Mm.
and yeah, definitely a team to keep an eye on. I think probably if you haven't followed Chinese Valorant in the past, I would say you might want to tune into some TYLOO games early on next year. All right, who do we have next, Mister TMV? We're up into the top four.
I'm gonna guess you're gonna say DRG, but maybe not. I don't know. Who are you gonna say?
Well, I'm just going off of like the placement in
Okay.
stage
Oh,
two.
so in stage two, then it should
Yeah,
be, I don't know, XLG.
let's go to XLG. Let's go to XLG. XLG have re-signed their head coach Avoya, who was shopping around at some point, looking for maybe some other offers. Looks like they're keeping Happyway, Rarga, and No Man. Makes a lot of sense. Those are probably their three highest firepower players.
Yep.
Um, and then they have added Lysor, which is an interesting pickup, and WS Leo, who I don't know a ton about, but played on Thunder Gaming in Ascension and was one of the higher fragging Sentinels. Like, put up duelist numbers on Sentinel in a fairly short stint for Thunder Gaming. So, what do you think about XLG? Because they were definitely, I mean, arguably the best team in China last year as an Ascension team. So, do you think that they'll be able to sort of like recapture that magic? Because I guess technically their spot is up for grabs again. They have to defend their spot every single time. Although who knows what will happen in 2027.
Yeah. I like this. Again, I don't know much about WS Leo, but keeping Hathaway, Raga, No Man makes sense. I do think No Man is one of those players where he sometimes absolutely will win you the game on his own, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes can be quite quiet as well. If he can become kind of more consistent, I think then they're in for a good spot. But Happyway and Raga are just like obviously you're gonna keep them. Lysor is an interesting one because again, I think that Lysor during stage one for Wolves, I think Lysor actually might have been their best player during stage one for Wolves. I always thought of him as more of like a Chinese farmer rather than an international farmer, but that's fine to pick up because at the end of the day, you got to win your region first. And I think Lysol could be good. The thing that again is quite interesting to me is you're saying that this Leo guy more of a Senti fragger. I did think that Lysol's best role was when he was playing Senti for Wolves last year.
And Happy Way is also a Senti
And
player.
Happy Way is also a Senti player, so that
Yep.
maybe causes some problems. Maybe they're, but again, like looking at this roster, if they can make it work, like Happy Way could play Viper. Like one of them is gonna have to play like Omen though. I'm gonna guess that it's probably gonna be Lysol. Is gonna play Smokes for them if I had to guess, because he did play quite a bit of Smokes for Wolves last year. So I'm gonna guess he becomes their Smokes player,
Mm-hmm.
and then you could still just put Happy Way on Viper and have Leo play whatever Sentinel you want to play. You can also run double duelist still though with Raga and No Man,
Mm-hmm.
but like who is your Sova?
Yeah, I mean that is
Like,
kind of a question. Is
is
like,
it just
and
we
who's
just putting
calling?
Lysol and everything?
Who's
Who's
calling things?
calling? Not a clue. Don't
Yeah.
know. It's a bit of a strange one, isn't it? But
Yeah, I
maybe
mean,
Happy Whale start calling. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, potentially. He's been on the team the
They're
longest,
coming
I
in
guess.
English. Maybe No Man will call for them because he's going to be the most confident in English.
Yeah, true. I mean, who knows? Honestly, who knows? Um, they've been a solid team. They've got solid players. I guess it's going to be kind of up to Hoya and the players to really kind of put the pieces together. Um, just out of curiosity, obviously Rarga, I feel like there's like a huge narrative. They kept like just bashing him over the head with this, like at champs. Like the talking point that I feel like Sideshow brought up like 500 times was he has no confidence. Like I can't believe how low this guy's confidence is. I don't know if that's necessarily true or not. He might have mentioned it in an interview at some point, but like, how do you feel about Rarga? Because to me, at times he looked like he was maybe the best duelist in the region, but also, um, he definitely was sometimes fading a little bit here and there.
Yeah, I think I like. I think unless you are literally one of the best players in the world of the game, like very few players, and this is how we know that these players are the best players because they are consistently very at the very top, right? Like an Aspas,
Mm-hmm.
or like an Alfia or a Chronicle or someone like that, right? Who's like always consistently like very very good, and even then, they have dips as well. Like, let's be real, how many of us, were that aware of Raga, being at this kind of level? Perhaps you knew he was a good duelist, but like you say, his peak is amazing. So like, I'm not gonna read too much into it. I think this year, if I'm XLG, if I'm Raga, I'm thinking, can I get to that top level and sustain it for a bit longer? That should be kind of like an individual goal for him, right? But like, at the end of the day, when you've got a player who can reach super high heights, this is like, why, I said about No Man, right? Like at certain times he can absolutely carry a series for you, but then at another times he's very quiet. Like, but you keep those players around because you think, well, if I can just get him to be more consistent at the higher level, then you've got an amazing player on your hands, and those are the players you want to keep. So I think it's fine. I think that Braga will still probably be a very, very good duelist for XLG this year. And I think looking at their team, the questions for me are going to be about roles and IGLing, but
Yep.
they probably know more about that and if it's working than we do. So I'm just going to say for now, go with it, trust it.
Okay. Cool.
Although, a point as well, though, is as you said, Havoya for a time was off the team, which is a little bit strange that he's then ended up back on the team. Because then it's like,
Yeah.
well, who was making these decisions for the roster? Was that when he came back, or was it before he left, or
True. True.
like what happened there? Don't know, but who knows?
Yeah, that is a good
They
point.
know, but we don't.
That is a good point. Yeah, if he came back in, he's like, "Oh, here's your two new players." And he's like, "What the fuck? We have three
Yep.
Sentinels. What did you guys do while I was gone?"
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Speaking of head coach moves,
Mm.
let's talk about Edward and their habits of
Oh,
gaming.
Mr. Edward.
So the moves for Edward Gaming, in case anybody missed it, seems unlikely, but maybe you did. They've added CB, which we alluded to earlier, very solid player.
Mm-hmm.
Because they've sort of had this rotating door on that last
Yeah.
spot ever since Simon was unceremoniously dropped and tried to take down the org unsuccessfully by airing dirty laundry. But perhaps more interesting, they have added Autumn, not the player from FPX. He's not transitioned to coaching. Autumn from T1 has joined the most prestigious org in China in Valorant, along with the head coach from Nova 24K. So they now have three coaches, including Heaven, who likely was staying from last year, and they've added one player. What is going on here, TMV?
I don't know, but it. It's gonna be interesting, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
I always think there are very few head coaches that like even for big like say Milan, right, on Fnatic, on a very
Mhm.
successful team. Like if I got most Valorant fans to tell you like what's your take on Milan, they'd probably like, I don't know. It's fine, I guess. I don't know. But everyone has a take about Autumn. Everyone seems to have a take about Autumn. Even before like he was won a Masters on T1. Like everyone seems to just have a take on this guy, which I find very interesting because he's not even like someone like Frost, who like puts
He's not
himself out there.
not super
Yeah, and it's like
outspoken or anything.
outspoken and like
Yeah.
makes a deal of it. Like he's just another coach, but for some reason he has got this reputation. And now he's found himself on EDG. I'm just fascinated to see how it works out. Again, I don't can he even speak Mandarin?
I'm gonna
I don't
assume
know.
no. I'm gonna assume
Yeah,
no, which is why they have two Chinese head coaches that
yeah,
are also there.
but
Yeah, I mean his career path
it's
has been
funny.
very interesting. Obviously, started
Yeah.
off at Cloud9 Korea, came over
Mm-hmm.
to the U.S. and was the
Cloud9,
head coach of
10.
Cloud9, and then had 3 years on T1, which is by far the most prestigious org in all of esports in Korea. Um,
Then won
despite
a Masters and then left.
despite poor results, stayed there for 3 years and then won a Masters and then left. Yeah, very
Let
very
me ask you this
strange.
question. Considering he was there for 3 years,
Yeah,
if they don't put out that documentary, is he still on T1?
bro. I mean, well, I guess another question is, did EDG go headhunting this guy? Because EDG has a huge
That's
amount of money.
fair.
Like
That's
if there's
fair.
a team that can rival T1 in terms of their esports capital, it's EDG. And out of
Jesus.
all the people to
Jesus.
headhunt,
The people would not want you to say that. The people would not want you to know, to know that, oh, the only reason Autumn isn't on T1 is because EDG decided to pay a boatload of cash to him instead. The people would go mad for that. The people would go crazy.
yeah, I mean it's
I
an
hope it's true. Honestly, I hope it's true. Good for him if so.
yeah.
I
I
will
mean,
say I've watched T1 play live. I watched them play live in Paris. Their energy was fucking shocking. This was an elimination game in a Masters Bangkok rematch against G2, and their energy on stage was horrifically bad. Horrifically bad.
really,
They
really,
would win rounds and they would be silent. G2 would win a round, they're standing up, they're laughing, joking with each other, they're having a good time. Even when they were down at certain points and like T1 had the momentum of the game, G2 you could tell was still, and I think that G2 aren't even like I think that the reason that I think G2 have added Bebe is because they weren't very good at that side of the game.
yeah.
And even so, G2 looked like they were having a ball compared to T1. T1 looked fucking miserable on that stage, and they
Wow.
lost, rightfully so. That's from a
Well,
live viewer's perspective, so that doesn't bode well for Autumn.
now I will say if there is one player who has unlimited energy on stage, it is Kong Kong.
True,
So
true,
maybe he'll be able to cancel that out. Also,
true.
give me the fucking coach cam of Autumn
Oh my god!
when nobody is just running down middle on Sova. Like
But
I'm gonna
again, this nobody fits into that life style of
yeah
player. You cannot tame the beast. You
yeah
have to just let him do what. I don't get why someone hasn't thought like maybe let's just put him on a role where that makes more sense and he can still IGL from that role, but let's just have him on a role where lurking mid makes sense rather than Sova
yeah
or Fade. I don't get that, but I mean, look, you can't like. Here's the thing: if you're EDG, you can't replace any of those four. You have to
no
keep the four. They're
yeah,
just like it's an iconic Valorant team. You have to keep the four
and
players
they're
together.
all
So
good. They're all
yeah, so there's
very
only
good.
so much you
Yeah.
can do anyway. So adding in Autumn, I mean, it's cinema. It's pure cinema. I'm
Remember,
thrilled for this. I mean, look, again, from my perspective, I'm here for entertainment.
true.
What is not to love about Autumn as the head coach? And you say that Kang Kang has unlimited energy, but I would like to pick you up on that point of like, does Kang Kang have a lot of energy when things are going terribly? Because I think there's two different types of energy. There are certain
Yeah.
players and personalities who have energy when things are going well, and it's great. And Kang Kang is great if you're doing well. But there, you need a certain type of personality. And this is where I think this is where like someone like Sufat, when you're standing up when you're losing,
Yeah.
what are you doing about that? Like the other team, what are you gonna do? The other team kept looking at Wolves confused. Gen G were beating down wolves, trying to stand up, and Sufat would stand up to them and be like, "Yeah, that's funny, isn't it?" What do you do with your Gen G at that point? It's a different kind of energy, and I think EDG still lack it. And also, it's
Imagine.
very difficult for anyone else coming into EDG either, right?
Yeah.
Because your expectation is, well, they won champs, so we
Yep.
know they can win champs, so everyone's expecting them to be that good.
Yep.
But if you're that fifth player, as we've seen with multiple players, it's a tough spot to fill.
Yeah.
No one really has been able to do it.
This is tough for CB. This is a tough ask for CB. And I was gonna make a joke about imagine if Autumn just picks Kong Kong as the guy he's gonna bully, and we get a documentary and Kong Kong is beaten down.
He would be hounded quickly out, I think. I don't think that would be a good strategy for him.
But also, I will say, remember in that documentary, I'm pretty sure Autumn was the Reyna comp guy, forcing Meteor to play Reyna. So we could see some silly stuff out of this team because I know they're down for some silly stuff based off their players.
Oh yeah. Oh, we could see a lot of crazy shit. I mean, they did some crazy shit last year, to be honest.
Yeah.
They won back-to-back 13-0s at one point last year. Don't forget. Wasn't that against DRG and XLG as well? Wasn't that against two? That was against two of the four teams that went to champs. I'm pretty sure
it was on Haven both times, right?
Yeah, one was definitely DRG because that is
because they picked it. They picked it
veto of all time.
Yeah, they picked after the 13-0 into yeah.
But who was the other one? They beat XLG and DRG. Those two teams went to champs. Back-to-back 13-0s.
Yep.
Insane.
Yeah. All right. I mean, I'm like you said, it is an entertainment league at the very least. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's quickly talk about DRG. They didn't make any changes because they ascended again. They were clearly the best team at Ascension. And, I guess it makes sense because they came right from champs to Ascension. And if they hadn't made it, that would have been a disaster for them.
Yep.
I'd heard rumors going into the offseason that maybe Vukashu was looking to go back to Europe. He's obviously been kind of like the black sheep over here in China. Super skilled, does his thing. The Vukashu buy is legendary in scrims and across the region at this point.
I mean, that's the thing, though, that's so funny. I assume playing him in scrims, when he started first doing it, it's like, who the fuck is this guy buying fucking rifle no shields on eco rounds? Like, who the fuck are you? And then you see him just do it constantly in games as well. Just like, I don't give a fuck. I'm playing Cypher and I'm buying no utility and I'm buying nothing but a Vandal.
I will just tell you that there is no better player in scrims than Vukashu that I have ever played. Zero. I've played a lot of people in scrims, and there is no better player in scrims than Vukashu.
That seems likely, actually. Yeah. That's like, if you had to guess, who do you think is the best player in the world at scrims? He must be. I think he's automatically your first thought for a player who just must dominate every scrim.
There was a period of time where it would be like, oh, we're scrimming DRG today, and our players would just be like, well, time for Vukashu to drop 40 on us again. And it was just like clockwork. It was like he's 14-3 by round 4, and like, well, he's just doing his thing, and the rest of his team has 1 kill apiece. It's just like, what is happening? But yeah, I mean, obviously,
that's how they play.
Yeah, this team deserves to be there.
You can't blame them. That's how they play.
I wouldn't change anybody on this roster, to be honest. I thought they were pretty sick last year. I think Akuman made them a very unique team, running around on Clove all the time, but kind of fit how they're playing. Adding Nathan D into a team that already plays weird stuff, I mean, what is there not to like?
Like a glove.
Yeah.
I think he is my favorite coach because he just does prove, like,
hey, fuck you, man.
You can oh, sorry. Well, sorry. But he just proves, like, you can do whatever the fuck you want.
Yep.
And it can work. And I just love that. Like, just do the fuck. Do whatever. And you can find success. Just get Vukashu on your team.
Yep.
Run around.
Okay. Let's talk about our final Chinese team. A lot of people's pick for the best team last year in this region. And they kind of lived up to that hype, I think. Billy. have seemingly kept their entire roster after making it to champs, beating EDG a few times last year. And they went over and snagged their coach, Muggle. The Champions winning coach has joined Billy Gaming, while Bale goes, obviously, to a different team. How do we feel about them keeping their entire roster and then adding in the EDG coach? Let's tackle those in two different sections.
Keeping your entire roster, again, like, if you're being realistic for probably, like, I would say this is realistic for every team, right? Like, your goal as a team is to make champs.
Mm-hmm.
That's your goal, right? Like, before anything else. So if you can make multiple internationals and make champs, then you've had a successful year for any team. Like, that's you hit the base, like, main goal, like, tick. I think for BLG specifically, right? They are a team that have been to enough internationals now and have enough experience to where what is their best finish in international? Was it when they beat Artis and NRG and like made it through to like the first bit of playoffs at champs?
I
I
feel
think it
like
might be.
probably, yeah.
But I feel like most of the internationals they've been to, they've
They
been
go up
grouped,
pretty early.
right?
Yeah, they go up
Yeah,
pretty
they'll
early.
go out early. So I think for them, like this next year, they've got to be looking at our goal is to finish, let's say top 4, right? As like a realistic goal, let's finish top 4 in any international. Don't care which. Any international, finish top 4. I think if that's their goal, can they do it with this roster? Yeah, I think so. Would I have hated them, maybe making a change somewhere if they thought that they could upgrade someone? No, I think that would have been fine. But I also don't hate keeping it together either. Russia, for me, is going to be the key to that because, again, I feel like he's becoming a bit of a Chinese farmer and then struggling internationally.
Yeah.
Because in China, he fucking farms people. Like, he just runs around and just kills everyone. But in internationals, like, I'm thinking of champs specifically here as well. Like, he did not look very good at all.
Yeah.
YZ, we know who he is. So I don't hate keeping the roster together. Maybe the coaching change is the thing that they need. With a coach who has been deep in internationals and won one.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that is what they needed as like a fresh voice and some new ideas to be the thing that did push them over the line. So I'm actually fairly optimistic because again, this team is too good to ever be bad. Like they're not going to be bad in China. They're going to be good. They're going to make internationals. It's just what can they do when they're there?
Yeah, I mean, I also have a little bit of extra insight, obviously from scrimming and just being around the region. I know that there's a lot of people that think of Neff as like extremely good as an IGL. I know a lot of teams wanted him, and BLG is like looked as sort of the lucky one that got him, and kept him. Obviously, K-Knight I think has been just a very solid, good player for them for a long time. YZ was pretty bad at champs, but had an incredible season. And then yeah, like you said, I think Rashia is really kind of the key because this guy in scrims is definitely one of like the fastest, like hardest shooters that I've seen in the Chinese region. Like he is crazy mechanically skilled, but obviously was very nervous on stage. Like you could see that he was like feeling the pressure of champs. And he played quite poorly as a result, made some like really bad, like dumb mistakes too. And then Levius is kind of just like a solid role player. Like he did pretty well at champs considering. But I don't think he's like gonna set the world on fire in that role.
You just remind me when Levius had like a pop-off map during champs and I brought up Leviticus. I started reading verses from Leviticus every time he was getting a kill. And trust me, of all of the Bible verses to bring up, that's not the one you want to be reading out on stream. Jesus Christ. Some of the things in Leviticus, you can Google it if you want, but like if you type in like top quotes from Leviticus, it's the bad one. It's the one with that you go, oh, don't know about that in the modern day. Don't know about saying that.
Well,
I brought back good memories though. That was a funny stream.
on that note,
Seriously, go on now. Get it up on your screen now. Get up Leviticus quotes. You'll see what I mean instantly. The top Leviticus quotes, crazy.
all right, Leviticus. Can
You
you tell that?
don't say them, but just read some of them, and you'll instantly be like, oh yeah, that's I see.
What do I type? Best Leviticus verses.
Sure.
Uh, let's see. Hey, this one's not too bad. When a foreigner resides among you in your land, do not mistreat them.
Okay. Okay. Are you on the same site I am? Popversus.com?
No, I'm just reading the AI summary. Maybe the
Oh,
AI
okay.
has
Well,
Anyway,
well,
before we get ourselves in trouble.
yeah.
Any final thoughts on Muggle? I mean, just proven head coach. Maybe can take them over the edge.
Yeah, like the thing is when you change a coach for a team like this, I think that's fine
Mm,
because the players should be good enough to still keep your full like unless Muggle is telling them fucking random shit, who knows? But most likely their floor is still going to be pretty high, and maybe the coaching change and the different ideas are the thing that gets them, just over the edge. To as I said, like their goal should be like, can we go deep in an international?
yeah.
I think if you're BLG.
Okay. Final grade for BLG. Give them a nice little solid B plus, maybe
Yeah, B
something like
plus.
that. Cool. All right. Final thing for you, TMV. If you had to pick a top three, no biases, out of the roster moves that you've seen, who are your top three teams at the end of the year from China?
Do you want me to do it in order, or can I just name
You
three?
can just give me three. You don't have to.
Okay, I'll say BLG for sure. I like where they're at. Man, I mean, the thing is, saying EDG is so boring, but it surely has to be true, right? Like, surely EDG. But then
I
again,
mean,
with autumn, let's
I
not
mean,
say EDG because of the
does it
autumn
have to be
factor.
true?
Let's
Yeah.
go BLG. I really to throw in something spicy. Let's go TYLOO.
Okay, I like it.
Let's throw in something spicy in there, and then let's not say EDG. Let's just say Vukashu and DRG as the third
Okay,
team.
okay, okay.
Spicy.
I like it. I mean, I think there's a decent chance that at least two of those end up in the top three. Um, I'm not gonna say which two, but yeah. I mean, man, if Autumn tanks this team,
Be so funny. I almost wish like it would be even better if they won the first Masters and then just completely fucking fell apart. And it's like, who is this guy? Who is this guy that's just amazing for a Masters and then
oh my
everything
god,
falls apart? Got to be so funny.
yeah, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good next year. All right, Mister Thank you, Man's Valorant. Thank you for your
Thank you.
Chinese expertise. I know you studied very hard for this episode, and
Study hard for everything.
we'll see you soon on stream.
Oh, okay.